Few people understand the currency of attention like Maz Farrelly. She's built her career on creating and running some of the most watched shows on the planet. Big Brother, The X Factor, Dancing with the Stars, Celebrity Apprentice, Q&A. Her productions have been seen more than 8 billion times, apparently. That's a lot of eyeballs.
It is, but I did a show at MTV that was, I think it was 70 million a show. So when you do a few of those, because it went out to, gyms and hospitals, and I'm guessing prisons where no one was in a position to switch my shows off. Imagining if they could, they would have. So it's not that hard. I did a lot of daily shows as well. So, if you do something on the X Factor and it's a good story and it works, you can have 40 million views overnight.
Fine.
So I would have friends who have gazillions more than me, but they've never been bothered to add them up.
Okay. Well, we won't attribute that great success to you then. We'll put it down.
It's not my genius by any means.
We'll put it down to the prison system.
Yes, thank you.
Former fashion journalist turned television heavyweight, she's worked with everyone from Beyonce to King Charles. Now she runs Maz Speaks, teaching brands and leaders how to hold an audience the way great television does. Today we're talking about what makes people watch, what makes them care, and why the principles of entertainment apply even in the business of luxury. No one's above it. Maz, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, because you do have a choice of people to invite. So I'm always very delighted when anyone invites me anywhere.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. Can we start with, I just kind of want to ask, you built formats that millions watch, and but you started in fashion and journalism, didn't you? Yeah. And can you just walk us through what pulled you towards television and specifically the types of formats that you ended up specialising in?
Yeah, so I was obsessed with fashion. So when other kids were saving up to buy, guns or drugs or whatever, I was saving up to buy Vogue. I can remember being 6 or 7 and, I knew the date Vogue would arrive. My little hand was really heavy. I used to go through it. I knew every designer, every photographer. You could open it anywhere and say, who's the photographer? I could tell you who did this makeup. I was just obsessed. And I think I reached a point where it was midsummer and I was shooting something like my 6th Christmas shoot. And I just thought, I don't know if I can do this. It's July and I'm trying to find turkeys and, it just felt, the lead time felt too weird for me. And I applied for a job on This Morning, which is a morning show in the UK, and staggeringly got the job. Called someone I'd pashed, snogged on my 21st birthday. And he worked for a record company. And I said, I've got this job in telly and got no idea what to do. So he told me, make friends with all the agents, make friends with the record companies and the film people and the publishers. And that was the start. I think I'd been very visual for a really long time. For 10 years, I was a stylist. So I was everything was about vision. And I reached a point where I wanted to use a different part of my brain. People would argue that you use less. Yeah, I quite fancied telly. And I loved it. And then I stopped loving it. Did something else.
Talk us through the things that you've done in telly.
So I started on This Morning, then worked on The Big Breakfast, which I absolutely loved. And Charlie Parsons, who was one of the creators, who also created The Word, which some people might know and have watched, and Survivor, came up with Survivor. The Channel 4 Daily was 200,000. He said, if we get 200,001, we're winning. And we were hitting around 2 million in about a month. It did really well. And then I think I did light lunch and late lunch for Channel 4, and then went to the BBC and did things like Noel's House Party, The Gotchas, which are quite hard to do and quite bonkers. And then stayed at the Beeb, came up with a load of formats, which is, if you're creative, it's like the best job in the world. You just think, and you think of new ways of doing things.
Give an example of what a format.
So a format is
looks like
a recipe. So if you create Caesar salad, you can sell Caesar salads because you've created a format, you've created the ingredients. If you make a documentary, you can only sell that documentary. if you create a format like The Weakest Link, you can sell that to 1,000 territories.
Okay.
So creating formats is brilliant because you can sell them. And it means you can keep the show going forever. So the X Factor's a format, Big Brother's a format, The Weakest Link is a format. They're a kind of recipe.
Did you come up with those recipes?
I came up with loads at the BBC. And the thing that is really interesting, I think, about telly is if you make biscuits, I can give you a biscuit and you can taste the biscuit and go, this is really nice. I like your biscuit. I love some of those biscuits. But I'm pitching something you can't see that doesn't exist. So essentially, you have Coca-Cola in your restaurant and I'm walking into your restaurant and saying, I'd like to give you a new cola. And I know you have Coca-Cola and I know it works, but I've got this new cola. Would you like it? Now, you're very brave if you say, actually, yeah, I'll dump Coca-Cola, I'll have you a new cola. So you have to convince people that it's a good cola, that you've made certain colas before that have worked. You do pilots and you check that it does work. And then you set it free. And I've come up with shows that I thought were incredible and would go on forever. And were absolutely killed. And then shows that I thought were okay, that went on for, 15 seasons.
Like what?
So I was on the team that came up with a show called Friends Like These with Ant and Dec. And yeah, it went on for about 15 seasons. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great until we did the pilot. And then when we did the pilot, it just worked, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And it is a lot of thinking. I think the only thing you can do in life, in business, in anything is think harder. That's all you've got. In any business, doesn't matter whether you're making paper clips or you're making telly or making luxury brands.
Well, you could argue thinking less is a fairly good strategy as well.
No, because lazy people will think less. They'll think, oh, that's fine. And I've been in screenings where I'll say to the producer, how is it? And they go, yeah, it's pretty good. They go, how exciting, pretty good. Is that what we're going to set free into the world and expect our audience to love pretty good? Or should we think harder? And if you want me to feel something, how can you make me feel more? If you want me to laugh, how can you make me laugh harder? If you want me to be surprised, how can you make me more surprised? And things that work and things that you love and that make you feel wonderful have been, I think, thought harder about. And the reason Susan Boyle is famous is not because Susan Boyle is a great singer. It's because Ben Thursby, who produced that piece, is a really good producer.
Yeah.
So I'll give you my masterclass in storytelling. This is your MBA, and it'll take you 3 seconds. It took me 30 years to work it out. Incredible stories do 3 things. They make you laugh, they make you cry, and they surprise you. And if you can do those 3 things, your content will generally work. If you can do 1, you're fine. If you can do 2, you're okay. If you do 3, incredible. If you watch, when I do workshops, I run workshops, big companies, I play Susan Boyle bingo and I get them to tick off, I laughed, I felt emotion, I'm surprised. I laughed, I felt emotion, I'm surprised. And it does all of them over and over and over and over again. When you do that, it will work. And the reason she's famous is because Ben Thursby thought harder than anyone else. He thought harder about, how do I make you feel more? How do I make you laugh more? How do I make you care about this woman more? And how can I surprise you?
So what are the ingredients for a good producer? What's the interplay between the person coming up with the format and the right sort of producer to bring it to life?
You tend to work with the same people all the time because the stakes are so high. If someone's giving you 30 million, you're not really in a position to say, should we try Alan?
Yeah.
I know he drives an Uber at the moment, but, he seems lovely. He's got nice shoes. You tend to employ people that you think, that you've been in the trenches with, because it is like going into battle, especially live TV. You don't have a second chance.
Is this
'cause it's
seriously
live.
stressful?
Depends on you. See, I liked it.
What was your first live TV situation?
Oh, well, my first live TV situation was my first day at work, and I was with Cliff Richard. So Cliff Richard, for anyone who's young, was the Justin Bieber of his day. although young people probably don't know who Justin Bieber is. It was this morning, and he was so lovely, and really, he was so much fun. I said something like, you've got great hair. He said, yeah, everyone thinks that I've had, a hair transplant, but I haven't. And he said, you can have a look if you want. I went, oh, okay. I found myself kind of going through his hair like a chimp, thinking this is quite odd. And then he said, how long have you worked in telly? I went, literally about 6 minutes. He said, right, do you know what you're doing? I said, absolutely no idea. No, someone's just said, you're looking after Cliff Richard today. He went, okay, show me, your rundown. I'll talk you through how it works. So he talked me through how it worked. And he said, to get to the studio, it's probably about 6 minutes. But he said, you see, I'm quite famous. So we probably need 20 minutes because I can see there are loads of people outside who I think are going to mob us. So he was very clear and very charming, very lovely. So my first lesson in live television was from Cliff Richard. And then I made lots of mistakes very quickly, which is good if you learn from them. If you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's not good. But I was on a live show. So when you do a live show, the thing that's brilliant about it is you learn very quickly. When you do a daily show, if you're making 2 shows a year, you've got 2 shows or 2 chances of goofing up. I had 3 hours of goofability every day. But I just made sure when I did something wrong, I never did it again.
What's a mistake you'll never forget?
Oh, take your pick. Oh, there were so many. There was one on The Big Breakfast where we had a family of the week on, and the mum was really nervous about being on TV. She was terrified. And we rigged her up to a heart monitor when we were interviewing her to see how nervous she was. And it just kept going faster and faster and faster. As we were watching, I was thinking, I think she might actually have a heart attack. I was like, and everyone was kind of looking at me like, has anyone noticed that it's going beep, 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 beep. Oh my God, I think we're going to kill her. The other one was...
But can I just ask, so why was she wearing a heart monitor?
Oh, because she hated being on live TV and she was really nervous.
So you just decided to just
We just decided that we would do an interview with her and see how nervous she was. We rigged her up. We got the doctor in. We rigged her up to a heart monitor.
So the actual theme of it was to see how nervous she got.
Yeah, to see.
Or that was just a backstage side project?
It was, it was part of a sandwich. The bread was the interview, but you throw a bit of bacon in there.
But
that was
can I? Because I think on TV everyone seems not nervous, but yet everyone seems to have public speaking anxiety and sort of how come no one seems as nervous as you might imagine they would be? I'd be nervous.
Everyone is terrified.
Yeah,
but it's your job to make them calm as quickly as possible.
How do you make them calm?
I tend to say to people, the great thing about what you're about to do and say is that no one knows what you're going to do or say.
Yeah.
So you can't get it wrong unless you're singing a song, in which case you can get it wrong.
Yeah.
People like when people are honest. So on the X Factor, and I've done about 12,000 interviews. I've done a lot of casting. And people would come in and they would pretend they weren't nervous. And they'd say, I'm the life and soul of the party. And you could tell they weren't. And I would say to them, I don't feel like you are, which is fine because I don't need everyone to be jazz hands. If you're quiet and considered, that's also lovely. So just be you, because what I don't want is you to pretend to be someone else, because that makes me not understand you. But when you're yourself, it's fine. And nobody knows what you're going to do. And when people walk in and say, I'm terrified, I'm so scared I could wee myself, you're going to go, it's fine. My first day at work, I was really scared. We've all been there. It's fine. Do your best. And know that everyone who's been in here, the other 1,000 people who've walked in the door, have been exactly the same as you. If you walked in and you weren't nervous, it would be quite peculiar. So most people are. You're
about to tell us another cock up, but I interrupted you.
Oh, yeah, I have millions. This was a particular favourite because there are lots of ideas in telly, I'm sure, in every industry. We call them good on paper. So it's good idea on paper. And then when you go to do it, you go, this is the worst idea of my life. So on The Big Breakfast, when you would do something that was particularly bad, within seconds, you could hear the phone going in the control room. And it was generally the network or the lawyer stopping you from doing something. And a camping company had developed something called the she-wee, and it meant that you could stand up and have a wee as a woman in the forest when you were camping. Great idea, you know, 'cause you don't squat down and you're not sitting in nettles or whatever. So I thought we'd try this. So I thought we'd try it at 8 o'clock in the morning, you know, halfway through the show. And then I thought, but how do we know? I think it was the same mum of the family of the week that I'd rigged up to the heart monitor. So she was having a bad week. And we got her to drink as much water as we could. It takes an hour for it to go through you. So, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning, we're pouring water into her. And we wouldn't let her go to the loo. You know, she's like, really, I'm desperate. She said, well, you can't go because then when we get to the show, you can't go because you've got to hold on, you know, hold on for dear life, do what you can. And she's, you know, she found it really very funny. Until I was thinking, now we're going to have her behind a hedge. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. But how do I know that she's really weeing? Because I can't hear it. So I thought, I'll get her to pee into a biscuit tin. So she's behind the hedge, so you can't see her, you know. We're going to try the she-wee now. And, you know, if you could just pull down your trousers and, you know, just attach it. And now just let it go. And when she started to pee, it was like a donkey peeing because she'd obviously not peed for, you know, 6 days. And the idea of someone peeing live into a biscuit tin when people are having breakfast and getting their kids ready for school was not the high point of my career. Well, then I would say about 2 seconds of her starting to wee, I thought, this is the worst idea I've ever had. And I've had some awful ones. So I was saying to her, you know, stop weeing. And of course, she can't stop weeing because she's been drinking water for 8 weeks. It has to come out, you know. Yeah. So it was a full kind of 3-minute wee. But within about 6 seconds, I could hear the phone going and that kind of in the background. So it was saying, someone get a gun and shoot the producer because this is the worst idea anyone's ever done. It was in the papers the next day.
You've worked in your career in the UK and in Australia and the US. What have you found to be like the things that are universal about what captivates people?
So here's the thing. Has anyone ever bored you into buying a product?
No.
No. Has anyone ever bored you into giving them a job?
No.
No. Has anyone bored you into watching their content? No. The universal thing is interesting and boring is boring. And people talk about how to speak to Gen Z or how to speak to, you know, baby boomers. And you say, the one thing everyone has in common is that no one who's a Gen Zer says, you know, there's nothing I like more than being dull. You know, uninteresting and boring is my favourite thing. You know, there's no baby boomer that's saying, oh, I love a bit of dullness. It just makes me really want to purchase. And yet, companies don't concentrate on being interesting. I find that astounding. People have meetings that are boring, which I find really rude. You think if you're inviting someone to a meeting and it's dull, it's really rude. You're asking them to take an hour of their time. Maybe, you know, if it's in real life, it's an hour to get there, half a day, and you're not going to make any effort to make it interesting. Why would you do that? And also, you want them to buy, you know, you or your product, your idea or your service, but you're not going to make it interesting for them. But you think that you're going to get a sale. I find it remarkable. And yet, most companies do it.
What is it that you think makes something interesting? I guess it goes back to those 3 storytelling components.
Yeah, I mean, you have to produce, with pictures, I really like pictures that have been produced. You know, you can feel it. You know, maybe only 2 I've ever sat through. I've thought, you've really thought this through. This is amazing. How do you deliver data? Do you deliver your data in a dull way? You say, you know, 14% of 18 to 22-year-olds who are left-handed think, well, I have no idea what you're saying. You have to interest people. It sounds like such an obvious thing, and yet no one does it.
Yeah.
You know, you read people's websites and you think, I can't remember a single thing you've said. I leave meetings and I think, I can't remember one thing you've said. And I speak at conferences. My job is I speak at conferences and I run workshops. And very often I'll listen to people speaking for an hour and I'll think, I can't remember one single thing that you've said. I will take nothing away from this. Nothing in my life will change. I find that quite sad.
It is sad.
Yeah, and a bit disrespectful. And no one stands on the stage thinking, I'm going to bore these people for an hour. But I think people think good enough is good enough. I don't really feel like that.
I think people think that their goal is to say all of the things that need to be said for someone to come to a conclusion that hopefully is the one that they would like them to make, rather than leading with the conclusion told in a way that has a hook with then the correct information to substantiate that perspective.
Yeah, the key word you said there for me is hopefully.
Yeah.
See, in TV, hope is not a strategy. We talk about it a lot. It's one of my big things, that hope is not a strategy. If you would like something to happen, you have to have a strategy. Now, you obviously did a bit of reading about me. You had a strategy. I'm going to know about this person. I'm going to ask them questions that I think will be interesting for my audience. What if you didn't? You just came in, just said, tell me what you do. How does that relate to, it won't work. You have to have a plan, and you have to think not about yourself and what you want to say, but about what they want to hear. And when you flip your thinking, so I do a lot of how to think with companies. When you flip your thinking, it absolutely changes your business. It's not about you, it's about them. How do you speak to them? How do you know who your them is? I know my audience in every show, which is why I can make a current affairs show, a documentary about education and Big Brother, because they are wildly different. But what I do is I produce content that is specific to that audience. Don't do one. People say, you do one type of thing. You think Beyonce's just done a country and western album. Brilliant. 5 years ago, would that be a surprise? Yes.
Do you think luxury brands run the risk of being a bit dull?
I think they can disappear up their own bums very much. I think they are making ads for themselves. I think a lot of fashion is doing fashion for themselves. I was in Ireland at the weekend and I picked up a nameless magazine at the airport that I won't mention. It was all about coats, and how the editor so looks forward to getting a new coat every year. That's, it's nice, lovely. And then I went to the coat section, and it's a mainstream. I picked it up at the airport. I didn't pick it up in an Aston Martin. I picked it up at the airport on a flight to Dublin. How much do you think was the average price of the coats they featured? So it's about 8 coats.
I'm going to go with like £1,500, but...
Yeah, it's about 2,800 was about the average.
It's wild.
Yeah, and I thought, now, I don't know many people who are spending 3,000 quid, $6,000 on a coat every year. I mean, maybe they are. But when I did fashion, I would have, a coat that looks like it's $6,000 worth, but is from, Asda, and you kind of go, look at this coat, it's incredible. It looks like cashmere, feels like cashmere, actually it's 40 quid. Or if you're thinking about a coat for the next 5-10 years, here's the real deal. And the reason this is incredible is because it's, hand stitched and it's this and the fabric is. But to give me, 10, 12 coats that are all, I think, wildly overpriced. What's the deal with that? It's just not real.
You've said that if something doesn't get your attention in sort of 30 seconds, you've lost the audience.
In television, audiences are brutal, and they should be, because there's a lot of choice. In the old days, when I was a kid and all around here with fields and dinosaurs, there were 3 channels really. Then there were 4, then there were 5. I mean, if you said that to a young person now, there was a choice of, 5 places you could go for content.
Yeah.
They would think you were out of your sweet, adorable mind. When people were talking about, if it's on social, it has to be interesting in 3 seconds. Just, I'm an expert in content, not happening. Just absolutely not a thing. It's not real. But you can in 30 seconds. So if you give me 30 seconds of your time, and you probably will, if you've made the effort to read the Netflix ad or whatever the ad is, and then you click on my show, you'll give me 30 seconds. You probably won't give me more, because guess what? There's an awful lot of choice. So your job really is to get people's attention in 30 seconds. And it's the same in a pitch. If you're going into a pitch, you're going to a comedy show. If someone is saving their best joke for 20 minutes in, I'm gone. I'm just gone. You've got to give me your best at the top, because you give me the best, I think, hello, you're funny. I'm going to give you my attention.
Yeah.
Visually, 3 seconds. So visually, and I do believe this because I did so much casting. By the time someone walked into a room, walk, stand, I would have started writing. Confident, moves beautifully, standing up straight, eyeballing me, gives me a sense of, an over sense of fairness. I think if we did something wrong, they would be angry, or, you'll ask people questions. When I first, I did a show, a sports show, with a company in Australia, and the guy that I was with, he was saying, how come you're writing and this person hasn't spoken yet? It's the way they move and what they're wearing, and seeing them. Because if you think about it, back in the oldie days, you would look at a mammoth and you would have to work out whether it was lunch or you were lunch. So our instinct with people is quick, and it should be, because you need to know if you're in danger or not. But we read each other very, very, very quickly.
Luxury brands are built on kind of aspiration, and with that comes a level of mystique and a bit of allure, and it's maybe a bit less instantaneous than what it takes to capture people's attention in the context of entertainment, or is it?
Well, everything has to be on brand. If you turn up to the X Factor, everything from the moment you arrive and you walk into the car park, people will be wearing X Factor t-shirts, and the signage will be on brand, and, the toilets will be clean, and the audience people will be charming, everything. So all the stuff that you don't see on screen has to be on brand. Everything has to be on brand. You can't have a great show and then kind of go, okay, off home, everyone. It doesn't work. So I think if you constantly think about your audience, constantly, you stop thinking about yourself and you think about them, and you treat them with the greatest of respect in every single sense. Like, I cannot bear I don't know if it happens, it certainly happens in Australia a lot, is that luxury brands will have a sort of red carpet, one of those little barrier things outside. So you have to queue. And then I look in the store and I think, your store's empty. And you're keeping your customers outside. And you think that's a good move, because you think you're creating an aspiration, people who are walking past kind of go, oh, look, they're queuing to go in. Wow. There must be something incredible in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how rude. Can you imagine inviting someone to your home and just saying, can you wait outside for 10 minutes? We're ready for you to come in, but I'd just like the neighbours to see that you're standing outside my house.
So, Maz, but like both television and luxury deal in perception, in kind of desire and illusion. What parallels do you see between producing a hit show and building a brand?
They are exactly the same, that it has to be different. I think when I do sessions and away days with companies, I like them to know what they do. I think very few companies do know what they do. And I always ask them this question, which is a really mean one. But I always say to them, why do you need to exist? And very few companies can never answer, because they say, we do marketing. I said, so do they. So are you the only people in the world that do marketing? They go, well, no, of course not. So then why do you need to exist? When you can answer that, you know what your business is, and you can be really clear about it. Why does this bag need to exist? Why does this watch need to exist? Why? Is it something that's so beautiful you will keep it forever? Hopefully, yeah. If you can produce something that is so carefully thought through, that is exactly right for your audience, and if you can explain to them why it's exactly right for them, and if you can get their attention and prove to them it's exactly right for them, and you can keep reinventing it. And I think lots of luxury brands are really good at it. Louis Vuitton's really good at it. They'll keep the classic, but they'll give it a twist constantly, which is great, because it's like Aldi. You want to go in and see what's next. Oh, look, it's a pop of neon this season. And I think, well, that's really nice. I like a pop of neon. And then have to have a chat with myself and say, walk out of the store. Like, don't do this. It's the Aldi skis. And it's clever. We like twists and turns in television. You know, the biggest twist ever, says everyone in every show. But we like to laugh, to cry, and to be surprised. And if you can keep doing that with people, it will work. Your format will live forever if you can keep doing it. And if you respect your audience and you keep delivering stuff that is different and interesting and really well thought through, it will work. If you're boring, it won't.
We go back to like the theatre of everything. I'm really fascinated by what e-commerce has done to it. We think that we've made things easier because what people want to do is buy something, but that's not really what people want to do. They want a before and after, and the thing's got to have meaning and a sequence, and you've got to be the protagonist in that journey. And like there are like people make millions on unboxing videos on YouTube for a reason, and then at the other end of the equation, you have these terrible loyalty programs that are transactional and offer you like sort of 5 points that represents £3, and nobody knows whether they're coming or going, and it detracts, in my opinion, from the value of the thing you've bought to begin with. What do you feel about all of that? What's the like? Are we losing? Luxury brands stage the experience, and you've got like store openings, runway shows, but then actually we just send people to just go and buy stuff online, and actually you end up having a come down when you buy it. In fact, there's actually the 60% of people who buy something online, it's called buyer's remorse, have like a come down after they bought it because there's not been a beginning and middle and end. They've just bought it impulsively.
I think that one of my big bugbears with anything that is online is that, see previous is about you and not them. The thing that was incredible when, online first started, because I was alive when it, first happened, is that you could return it for free. I'll try it on at home. I'll see if it goes with my shoes. I'll see if it fits properly. And if it doesn't, I can actually send it back.
Yeah.
For free. It's incredible. That stopped happening. I think that the world has gone slightly mad with automation of everything. And I don't know if you've ever been in the chatbot, Wheel of Doom, where you keep putting in, can I use my mobile in Ireland? Which is something that I did for about an hour last week. So I just want to know if I can use my mobile plan when I'm in Ireland. So I went online, tried to, put it into chat. Chat said, I think you can, check with you. So I went to the provider, frequently asked questions, then went into live chat. Because it wasn't live chat, it was a chatbot that just took me round and round and round and round and round. Is your roaming not working? No, it was an hour of my time, and eventually somewhere locked in a cave behind a hedge was the answer. Now, I remember in the old days, when all around here was black and white television, you could call and you could ask someone a question. Now, that is a luxury.
Unless you were already in Ireland, in which case you could have had a problem.
Yeah.
But at least you'd have known the
But
answer.
actually, when I was in England, I could have called and said, I just want to check, can I use this? Go, yeah. Now, that's 8 seconds of my time. But the convenience of it being all available to me online meant that I spent an hour of my time, which I'm not being paid for, trying to check something that's so utterly simple. And I think we've gotten very lost because it's about us, what we want. I don't really want people answering the phone. I don't want to pay for people to answer the phones. But you think actually it is a very basic service that I think is not available, which is kind of crazy in a way.
Everyone gets so frustrated with the sort of failed digital transformation of call centers. I mean, just like give me a person. I mean,
just
to try and talk to your bank is now a luxury. And
almost impossible.
And that is the future, isn't it? Talking to a human is the luxury. And
talking to a human is the luxury, which I find beautiful and exciting about life. That I think we've I think about the pendulum. I always think about the pendulum swinging, and it swings in television to very cruel television, to Bake Off where people are crying over, meringues, which is lovely, and then it'll settle somewhere in the middle. And I think we've gone so far that the pendulum is coming back, and I think we will want to come back to the office, and we will want to spend time sitting next to someone and go, "How's your dog? How's your kid? Yeah, dress is nice, whatever it is." But actually be with people.
Wow.
And pick up a phone and speak and not text, and meet people and not Zoom. And actually, I will buy a product, I'll spend a bit more on it if you employ people. I will spend a bit more, at a bank, for the ability to call someone and ask a question and say, I'm going to be in Turkey next week. Can you not block my account?
Yeah.
Or I don't know, is it cheaper for me to X or Y, whatever it is? So I think luxury will be handmade, luxury will be not AI, and our luxury will be, we have people on the phone. I go, brilliant, thank you. Because, and also when you have to hold, you are the 78th person in the queue. And you think, do you think maybe you need to employ more people? It's a crazy idea. Maybe you do.
What do you think brands can learn about how they manage influencers or creators from what you've learned managing people in the limelight?
Influencers just make me feel, I don't know, a bit sad. I think being a person of influence, I think is very different to being an influencer. If I see Kate Blanchett buying, SK1 in the supermarket, I'm probably more inclined to buy it than if I think you're being paid 3 million to tell me this product is good. And I've worked on those campaigns, I've styled things. I think it's nothing as honest opinion. When I was a beauty writer, I would test every product I wrote about. I didn't just cut and paste.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm me. So I would give motorbike drivers, face cream. And I'd say, put this on in the morning, and then I want you to fill out this questionnaire. If you've got a partner, ask your partner how your skin feels before you put it on, and after a week, how does it feel? Does it keep the sun off you? Is there less redness? Whatever it is, and they'd fill out a questionnaire and write about it. Now I would trust someone like me more than I would trust someone who's been paid $1 million to say that cream's great. Doesn't make any sense to me. And
what about the egos? What about the, your job has been to marry people who are known for something. Let's move away from the term influencer, which is, it carries the connotation it carries.
There's so much baggage attached to it.
There's a lot of baggage, yeah. Most people who are in the limelight, it's due to some sort of creative endeavor, and you're putting them into a format that has its own creative direction itself, and you've got to make those two things work, or perhaps like wonderfully not work, to create entertainment. And what have been the ups and downs of like managing these people? And because brands are now having to do this more than before, and I find it interesting because it's often uncomfortable and doesn't work well.
So people are people, obviously. You have to know what motivates them. That's the big thing. And for most people, it's fame. And with fame comes, money, because the more people who follow you, the more people you can reach. So if I have a choice between two people on The Celebrity Apprentice, I'm probably going to go for the person that has a bigger following. If you're quite similar. Same in the X Factor. If I've got two singers who are very much the same, and one has 6 million followers and one has 6, I'm probably going to go for the 6 million, because it means that my audience is bigger and broader. I think matching brands with people is really hard. I think it's a specialist skill.
Well, you did something called Talk of Doom, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
And it was designed for contestants and sort of just giving them a bit of a baptism of fire around the realities of fame.
Yeah, well, it was very honest.
What was that?
So I would say to people, as I've done, I know off by heart because I've done it so often, I'd say, so here's the thing. You're going to be too famous to go back to your job, but you're not going to be famous enough to be famous. You won't work for 2 years. Now, we can't pay you for 2 years because, by the way, I'm going off to, go on holiday or start a farm or decorate my house, or have a baby or get a divorce or whatever it is. I'm not going to be taking your calls because I'm going to be working on a different show, or I'm going to turn my phone off and go on holiday. So you need to know that you're probably not going to earn for 2 years. Because if you work in a shoe shop and people are coming in and pointing at you and not buying shoes, your boss is going to be cross. Anyone you've ever slept with, if it's been anything other than very vanilla sex, they will sell their story. And someone will buy it. And your parents will be very embarrassed, probably. And so will your friends. And also, and so will you, I suspect. You will think that we have portrayed you in a certain way, and we haven't, because we don't care, because we're not winning. I don't care who wins, it's not me. Someone's going to walk away with $1 million. I'm cross that isn't me. I would like none of you to win, if I'm absolutely honest. I'd like me to keep the money. So I would go through and I'd say, you won't date. If you're a girl, no one will date you. If you're a guy, people want to punch you in a bar, and people might want to sleep with you. They probably want to sell their story. And you will be in a restaurant and you'll walk in, and most of the people in the restaurant will go, there's that idiot off the telly. And you don't think it'll be you, but it will be. And you've done it yourself. You go, it's that idiot off, Love Island or whatever it is. You don't think it'll be you, it will be. And I can guarantee that these things will happen. And if you are a woman, you kiss someone on the show who isn't your boyfriend, or you've got a boyfriend outside the house, your mum will probably get a brick through the window with something rude about you on it. If you're in a relationship, you probably won't be by the time you leave. That's the reality. Now, you're not going to believe me, but I've done this a lot. And I want you to go home and speak to one person, not 12. Don't make it your hairdresser. But speak to one person, talk them through this, and then tell me tomorrow whether you really want to do it. My advice is not to. Only one person ever has come back and said, I don't want to do this.
I just want to ask you one outro question, Maz, and that's if you had to give up a job tomorrow, what would you do?
I wouldn't give up my job.
Okay.
I love what I do. I absolutely love it. I liked making telly. I didn't love it. I did love being a fashion stylist because I got a load of free clothes and travel the world. I really love the risk of sounding like an aging Miss World. I love that in 1 hour, I can change the way people think about their lives and their businesses. And I love when people write to me a year later and say, my business has expanded. I've taken 2 people on. We are more successful. And it was down to that hour. That absolutely fills my soul. I love it.
I've got one other question, actually. What concerns you about the world that we're leaving the next generation?
I worry less about the next generation. I think they're much nicer than my generation. We were kind of brought up to be a bit greedy. And, greed is good. And it isn't. I think that when I spend time with younger people, I think you're ethical, well, everyone obviously, but ethical, you're sustainable, you're kind, you care about people, you will spend your dollars with people that you think are ethical. So I worry less. I would like to see us voting for people who aren't, real egomaniacs. I would like to see more women in power. That's something I would like to see change. And I would really like us all to be kinder. I think if you can double your kindness every day, it will have a real impact in the world. And I know I sound like a bit of an aging Miss World, but I think it's really important. When I ran TV shows, I tried very hard to be very kind to everyone, including the people that I really wanted to leave and never see ever again. I think I need to be twice as kind to you. So I think if we absolutely make a very, very decided effort to be kinder to each other. And that means also being respectful of people's time, being more interesting.
Yeah.
Don't treat people like they are idiots, and don't disrespect them by being dull.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure.